this, you have the ability to visualize both the action and the result of drag and drop interactions, which adds to the realism and impact of your simulations. In this video, we'll demonstrate the creation of 2 drag and drop interactions. The goals for our 2 interactions will be similar. We want our reviewer to be able to drag books from the catalog on the left to the Books I've Read list on the right. As you can see in Studio, we've already created the tile list and the datasheet that populates the tile list. We've also added the drop target on the right, which is a standard section widget. Since we want the reviewer to be able to drag book entries from the tile list to the section on the right, we need to make the section widget within the tile draggable. You do this in the Properties panel. Choosing the Drag and Relocate option means that we'll be dragging the entire section and moving it into the drop target. When we make a selection in the draggable field, new options appear in the Properties panel. Since we want the reviewer to be able to click anywhere inside the section, we'll leave the drag handle field blank. For during drag, we'll choose Drag Ghost Copy of Widget, setting an opacity of 50. We also want to prevent the reviewer from dropping the book entry just anywhere on the page. To do this, we'll select the Books Read section for the Restrict Drop To attribute. That's everything we need to make the book entries draggable, but there's one more thing we need to enable the behavior we're after. In the Books Read section, we'll choose Vertical Layout. This will force all of the book entries we drop in the section to stack themselves one on top of the other. Let's see how this looks in the browser. If we try to drag a book and drop it anywhere but the Books I've Read section, it snaps back into place. If we drop it into the section, it remains there, just as we planned. Now let's imagine that instead of dropping the entire book entry into the Books I've Read section, we just want to add the book titles to the list on the right. We also want the gaps left by dropping objects into the section to fill in automatically. We can do this by triggering an onDropOverTarget event on the page. First, let's duplicate our existing page to serve as a starting point. Since we'll no longer be dropping the content itself onto the Books I've Read section, the first thing we'll do is change the draggable attribute to Yes. Now we can set up the event trigger. In the Events tab, we'll expand the Show Events For dropdown and choose onDropOverTarget. This reveals a new dropdown that we'll use to select the drop target, but first we need to add the Books Read section to the list of options. With the trigger defined, now we can configure the event. We'll click the Add link under the Events pane and choose Record. We want to update records in the Books datasheet with this event. Note the onDropOverTarget trigger on the navigation line. Now we need to tell the simulation exactly how we want the record to be updated. We'll use a constant for this. In the Constant Widgets Properties panel, we'll select the red field and then type Yes in the list below it. Then we'll send the value to the Update Books action. Because the clicked record has been sent to the clipboard, the value of the red field will be updated for only that record. Finally, let's refresh the page after the record is updated to display any changes in our data. To display the book titles in the Books I've Read section, we'll add them to a single column data table with no header. Let's change the section layout to absolute so we can position the table wherever we want. We can also remove the borders from the table. We'll need a Get Records action to populate the data table. Since we only want to display records with a red value of Yes, we'll configure a Where condition. Let's test the interaction. The list is generated as we planned. However, the books aren't being removed from the tile list. That's an easy fix. We need to display only the records with a null value in the red column. Let's configure a Where condition for this. Again, we'll select red in the first column, but this time we'll place our cursor in the last column and press Enter to apply the null value. Let's test again. Success. As always with these types of interactions, use your best judgment when deciding how far to take them in your simulations. When you decide it makes sense, a drag and drop interaction can add a lot of impact and clarity to your requirements. Thanks for watching.